bridge, the 25 meters bridge into the water. It's a simple task.
Uh-huh.
Walk off the cliff to jump. Is it easy? No.
It's not. No, it's not. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense rationally. Dude, just walk over there and jump. Why don't you jump?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy on an understanding conceptual level, but to actually muster up the courage, look over the edge and see that you're going to drop 50 feet or 25 meters around that into some water and you don't know what's down there, you're going to have second thoughts and you're probably going to think, I don't know. Maybe instead of jumping, I might just sit back here and do what I'm comfortable with and not jump. Why not do that? So,
and the amount of energy that first step, just before actually doing it, the amount of energy that goes into that doubt and uncertainty and everything that goes around emotionally on the time before you actually execute something.
Yeah.
It's a total waste of energy. Yeah.
And so to kind of play on this idea a little bit, because you mentioned something critical, and I think your audience can benefit from this. If you are as a leader and you're expecting someone to do something because they understand it on a conceptual level, you have to take into account the emotional attachment that's involved in that, because that's 50% of the process. Mm-hmm. We make decisions based on emotion and then we justify and implement through logic.
Yeah.
The decision for me to eat food is based on the feeling of being hungry. If I don't have the feeling of being hungry, I don't need to go through the hassle of, loading up my bow and arrow or climbing up a tree or going to the grocery store or whatever humans have done to satisfy the feeling of hunger. Like it's not there, right? There's no motivation. So one thing I would suggest people look at is, what is the emotion behind the resistance to change? That is what's stopping people from actually doing. Mm-hmm. If you dig into that deep enough, most of the time it's fear. Mm-hmm. And the fear is, I don't know this. I'm not comfortable doing this. I might mess up. I might look, I might damage my reputation. I'll lose face. I might make a mistake. I don't know how this feels. I won't feel good. I won't feel confident in myself. I don't know. I don't want to step into that. I don't want to.
Let me invite you to sit back, drop your jaw, tongue, and shoulders, take a deep breath, and if you wish, close your eyes for a moment and feel the beat within. In a few seconds, you just jumped from your head to your heart, opening up to receive even more value and fulfillment out of your business and life. And today's episode. I'm your host, Nico van der Venne, confidant to successful CEO, founders, entrepreneurs, and striving to achieve everlasting fulfillment. Welcome to the Everlasting Podcast with our next guest, Robert Greene. As a co-founder of Greene Solutions LLC, Robert provides expert-level sales and marketing consulting, copywriting, editing, and video marketing services for U.S. and international companies. With over 15 years of experience in sales, digital marketing, business development, and B2B sales, he has a proven track record of delivering results for his clients across various industries and markets. Hello, Rob, right from Bali. Man, I am jealous. Wow, that is so cool. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to. We had a wonderful conversation in the green room right now. You mentioned a couple of things I really want to touch base on. Okay. But the first thing I want to mention is, like, you're telling me there's monkeys and snakes in your vicinity. I would not be feeling easy. How do you
feel
about
outside?
That? Yeah.
I mean, when I explain it to other people, they get shocked. But for me, it's like an everyday thing. So I kind of get like numb to it, I guess. But yeah, when I'm walking out of my yard, there's large gray long-tailed macaque monkeys that are like within a feet of me, and they're pretty aggressive sometimes. So gotta whack them with a stick or shoot a slingshot at them. Or
okay, they kind of steal your food, or what's the issue there?
Say again.
So do they steal your food, or what happens?
Yeah, they steal food. Like if you have anything that looks like food, they're gonna try to bully you, and scare you into giving it to them. I don't know. We kind of have an understanding. Like if they're in my yard, it's my territory. When I'm out there, we kind of leave each other alone. But I don't know. It's at first I was really uncomfortable with it, but now if it's an everyday thing, it's just like, yeah, oh, there's monkeys out there. Anyway.
So was that kind of the same story when you told me that you lived in the Philippines for quite a while, and of course, the beautiful COVID thing happened, and you moved on. But is it kind of the same story there? Because I cannot imagine. I know a lot about nature and stuff like that, but
Mm.
zone wise or country wise, I'm not always with it.
Yeah, well, it's a similar climate and topography
Uh
because
huh.
they're only about 4 to 5 hours away from each other. So it's
Hmm.
all subtropical, a lot of green, a lot of oceans, a lot of beautiful nature and scenery.
Yeah.
Bali is, I think, a bit ahead in terms of infrastructure and being open to the entrepreneurship scene on an international level because there's a lot of digital nomads. There's a
Yeah.
lot of businesses that come here. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that come to Bali for the lifestyle. Like it's kind of a hub. We call it Balifornia. So
Yeah. That's a good description.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's not a developing country, but kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know what I
Indeed.
mean.
Yeah.
It's sitting in the
It's
gray area in the middle where you get a lot of
indeed.
comforts and a high quality of life.
Yeah, okay, well that's cool. So how did you in any case, how did you flow into that story? Because going from the US to those regions, it must be a completely different story. How did you get
Yeah.
there?
So I joined the military when I was 18 and I served overseas. I was in the both of the conflicts in the early 2000s.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So after my tour in operational duty, I got sent to the hospital in Yokosuka, Japan, the US Naval Hospital, and I worked there for 2 years. And I just like being overseas
Uh-huh.
because whenever I'd go back to the US, it's kind of the same stuff over and over again. You
Hmm.
have your shopping malls and your Walmarts and your baseball. And I mean, that's good and all. But for me, I developed this kind of thirst to explore the world and explore different cultures and learn new languages. And I was living in Japan, so I decided to stay in Japan after I got out of the military.
Uh-huh.
So I went to college in Japan,
Oh,
and
okay.
I finished my bachelor's in Japan, and then I finished my secondary degree in Japanese language and culture studies. And then from Japan, I wasn't able to find an entry level job in Japan that would hire me as a foreigner because back in those days there was a bit of how do we say this racial
Hmm.
bias, I guess. I wouldn't say sacred, but bias.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I ended up getting an offer for a job with a Japanese company in the Philippines. So they had an
Oh,
offshore operation in the Philippines, and they offered me a position, and I took it. So I moved to the Philippines in 2010.
uh-huh. Okay. So that's so you stayed in the Philippines for, I think you said 12 years, and then yeah, it was kind of COVID was caused you to jump over to Bali then.
Yeah, I mean, I was working in the Philippines in corporate from 2010 until 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2016, I decided to kind of break away and do my own thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I spent 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 in the remote islands of the Philippines
Mhm.
because my original drive towards entrepreneurship was sustainable living. So I quit
Okay.
my corporate job,
Uh-huh.
and me and a group of 8 friends, we built a sustainable development project in the middle of the jungles of the Philippines.
Okay.
So we had sustainable housing, we had off-grid energy systems, we had a little farm, we had our own water pump, water supply, we had fruit trees, and then I lived near a tribe of people called the Tumondok and the
Mhm.
Kalibogan tribes in Visayas in the Philippines. And they took
Okay.
us in and we learned their ways. So I learned how to farm, I learned how to plant, I learned how to hunt, learned how to sail, learned how to spearfish. I learned how to live out in the jungle. So
Wow.
2016 until 18, I was pretty much just in out in the brush,
I
living
think
off
it
of the
sounds like
land.
paradise for a lot of people, but I think it must be pretty challenging to,
Yeah,
completely go from let's say our high tech, fully serviced water running, and all of that beautiful comfort that we find mundane to an environment you have to do it yourself. And I think a lot of
yeah,
people strive to do that, but I think it's pretty uncomfortable at
yeah.
points.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think.
So,
Go ahead.
so is there anything that you really kind of jumps out in that period that challenged you the most as a person, as your inner self maybe?
Yeah. The thing about us, like when we're in society, we're very quick to jump on our urges, right? This is how
Yeah.
our society is set up. Any
Hmm.
kind of urge that we have, it's easily satisfied. And
Mm.
we're getting implants of urges we don't even have yet. So, like, if I could be walking down the street and I see a picture of a juicy, delicious hamburger, I might want a hamburger even though I'm not even hungry,
True. True.
right? Or if I pick up my phone and I see all these pretty pictures of stuff that I'm not even thinking about, there's a constant ability to entertain urges. But when you're out in nature, out in isolation,
Uh-huh.
you have no input other than your own imagination. So mentally, you'll go through like an unpacking period, because whenever like we have a say a negative feeling, right? Like if I feel bad and stressed out, I want to go to my favorite restaurant, or I want to, watch TV, or I want to turn on Netflix. None of that exists anymore. So you really have to confront yourself in a lot of ways. So for the first maybe 2.5, 3 months, you get hyper emotional
Hmm.
because you're dealing with a lot of discomfort because all your comforts are gone. Like you're isolated from your friends and family, you have no modern comforts. And then we're out there, we're building our structures. So the first 3.5 to 4 months, I was sleeping in a hammock in a little bamboo. I didn't even have a house yet. It was under construction. So I had like a bamboo roof and then a hammock on a tree. And then I
Okay.
had a hole in the ground for a bathroom.
Okay. I cannot imagine that. I'm so used
Yeah.
to all these comforts, but I can imagine that that's also as like you say, you get emotional, but then sometimes I wonder um how much of that emotion do we carry along with us all the time here in the Western world? And sometimes I'm kind of envious of the people that never were influenced by all those
Mm.
prepared stuff that we get either from parents or environment or schools or
Yeah.
whatever. This is how life is and this is how you need to live, and then you come up into these stories where you've been, and I'm just filling in, but I think you probably learn to enjoy life more or appreciate stuff more. Is that something that happens then as well?
Yeah, well, it's a process of like detox. I guess I like to call it a mental and emotional detox because in Western society, we're not very good at confronting ourselves.
That's true.
We don't really honestly sit there and say, okay, this is how I feel about this thing. I'm going to face it. It's, oh my God, I feel bad. Let me do something to make myself feel better.
Hmm.
I'll order in the pizza, grab a drink. I'll go on a dating app and meet somebody. Whatever we do, it's just really like this urge to fill this kind of hole that we have inside of us. So when we get into a deep enough hole, then we'll seek help, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's because something bad happens. Like I got drunk one night and I wrecked my car, and now I'm going to lose my job. So it's a problem. Now I'm going to go to the doctor and seek help. Or,
Yeah.
my wife left me after I'm screaming at her at 3 a.m. and the neighbors called the police. Like something extreme is a trigger
Mhm.
for us to get help. And then we start to look in a different direction. But until that happens, our go-to mindset in the West is instant gratification, comfort, and fulfillment.
Mhm.
And so this experience really brought me to a place of like, you don't have that anymore. Here's where you are. You're going to be
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You don't have food that you can just grab anytime you want. You don't have, Gojek or Uber, they call it where Uber Eats, I guess, in the West. You
Yeah.
don't have
Something.
that on tap. If you want
Mhm.
food, you got to climb up a coconut tree. There's not fresh water. Like you got to climb up there 30, 40 feet in the air, risk falling off and paralyzing yourself, grab
Uh-huh.
coconuts and come down. Or if you want water, you got to go hike down to the bottom of the spring, bring it up, boil it, and drink it. So you start to really be very honest and present with yourself,
Mhm.
and you don't have a means of fulfilling these urges of escape. So when you sit with them long enough, you kind of get over them.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, personally for me, I was dealing with a lot of PTSD from being on active duty
Uh-huh.
because I was in theater in the Middle East in
Mm.
2003 and then in 2004. So this for me, it was like on a personal level, it was kind of like a, extreme situation happened. And I wanted to really start to say, okay, I really need to confront myself in a new way. And I'm not just going to go to a doctor who's going to give me pills and tell me to come back tomorrow. Like I want to do
Mm.
something totally different. And I did. So that was part of it for me was more of the intention to confront myself and help kind of get over the symptoms I was having with PTSD and these flashbacks and all these things that were happening that were not really good for my life in any way.
Imagine, yeah. So did you do? So you've went through this whole process on your
Mm.
own. What were you, couple of friends? You said what came out of it? Where did you end up at the end of those 2.5 years? What did you do something after that to bring it out into the world to make other people aware of it, or what kind of happened after that?
Well, there's a couple other parts there. We didn't talk about this before, but during that time when I was in the Philippines, I also discovered practicing yoga.
Uh-huh.
So I decided to travel to India, and I went to India for 3 months, and I lived in the foothills of the Himalayas. And my
Wow.
teacher was a Vedic Hindu monk, and so I was
Cool.
taught
Okay.
yoga in the traditional way with the monks. They call them sadhu or babaji. So they're
Okay.
known as like a renunciate, which is a person that totally devotes their life to yoga and renounces the world. And
Uh-huh.
so that experience was really, really intense because I started practicing yoga with the intention of healing trauma within myself, re-regulating my nervous system, and kind of changing my mindset towards life. So that was a big part of it. So in 2017, it was from July, August, September, and part of October, I was living in the lower Himalayas in Uttarakhand province in India,
Okay.
in Rishikesh around the Ganges River, studying yoga.
Uh-huh.
So that was one stop. After that, I went to China, to the Shandong province in the city of Rizhao, and I
Uh-huh.
lived in a Shaolin temple and I studied martial arts there for 3 months. So I
Okay.
was training intensively under the tutelage of a grandmaster. Grandmaster Zhang was his name.
Uh-huh.
So after that, I came back to the Philippines and I was continuing my off-grid project. And by 2018, I had some complications arise with my land lease and the local government. So I
Mhm.
decided to pull the plug. But to answer your question, all in all, a lot came out of that experience. I wrote a book called Turning Wounds into Wisdom, Living
Mhm.
Life After a Traumatic Experience. And it outlines a process you can use to release your stuck emotions and reframe your traumatic experiences so they don't shackle you.
Yeah. Okay.
And
That's interesting. So can we find that book somewhere? Because I think it's so interesting to read something like that. Because you actually did it as well. There's a lot of people who write books about processes, but if you've gone through it and experienced it, I think the value is like 10x what normally is in a book. But can you find it somewhere at this point?
right now I haven't released it yet. It's still
Okay.
in the it's still in the works. I'm still talking to a publisher. So if I'm going to get it contracted through a publisher, I'm going independent. So that's
Cool.
still in the works. But if you want to check it out, I post my work just kind of on Instagram, on LinkedIn.
Oh
So
well.
I mean, if you want a copy, I'll give you a copy for free.
Oh,
Because
that'd
I'm
be
just
nice.
trying
That'd
to
be
help
great.
people.
Thank you. Yes, but I think as well.
But
I probably can imagine if you've gone through that. So it's what you've done is really gone to different locations, different sources. Really been there, and I can imagine that for a lot of people listening to the podcast, it might be a little bit of a stretch to actually go and do all these things
yeah,
in different countries. But if you got a story that you've written, they might be inspired already to do what you've been doing in the past. I think your book is it's going to be an amazing thing if you launch it. And so you've talked about the period you went to those different things and your time in the military. You did also mention, and I can agree with you on that within a lot of Western businesses, corporate environments, you see an enormous amount of military structures there and ways of pulling stuff from the military into a corporate environment. And
yeah,
of course, there's a lot of people. For instance, in the U.S., I know that there's a lot of people who've done military duty at some point. Like here in Belgium, I think it's since I have to think about it, but I think it's in the 1990s. There's not no obligation to do military service anymore. It used to be like 1 year you had to do it. You were 18 years old or 19 years old, 1 year of military service, and then you just went off to find a job, blah blah blah. And I think they're even trying to reinstate it or something. But in any
Mm.
case, so there's a lot of people who didn't go into the military, and they
Mhm.
end up in corporate environments, and they see these structures. Um, I can imagine that with your experience as well, if you're able to guide people, and with all the wonderful stuff that you're doing right now, how do you see those things happen in those corporate environments? Because you're talking about trauma, but there's trauma there as well sometimes
Yeah.
for people who come from the military into corporate environments, and then
Oh yeah.
start directing stuff, but people that don't understand get lost. And it kind of, yeah, might end up in a different way.
I would say the biggest crossover is organizational hierarchy, right?
Hmm.
And the thing that's unique to the military is active leadership training is part of your everyday life, and it's part of your basic training, it's part of your promotions, it's part of your performance evaluations.
Hmm.
It's ingrained in you from an early age, I guess. When you join and you go into boot camp, and it's already ingrained in you.
Yeah.
The difference with corporate America is they base leadership, I wouldn't say just America, but corporate settings in general, is
Hmm.
they base leadership on job skills.
Hmm.
Like if I'm the best, engineer and I know how to work this machine the best, okay, you're going to be the boss. You'll be the
Yeah.
boss of this part of the company or this section.
Uh-huh.
But they don't give you they don't understand that technical skills and people skills are not the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. Uh-huh.
Like I can be super good at doing this stuff with a machine or, programming the software or talking to people and closing deals, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I know how to lead people. That's a whole new skill set that I'm not automatically given.
True.
And so I think what's happening is a corporate world is seeing the effects of this because generally, if you don't have experience as a leader, you'll revert to kind of our primate instinct tactics,
Hmm.
which is a lot of intimidation, fear, rule with an iron fist, do as I say, not as I do, kind of things that
Yeah.
people do naturally. And unless that's trained out of you, then it usually causes high attrition rates because people leave their jobs not because of the job necessarily, because they don't like the work environment.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, there's nothing worse. Like I had experiences too, like going to work every day with a boss in a company that's just a toxic environment, and you're just sitting there all day looking at the clock, waiting for it to strike 5 so you can dash out the door and get out of there.
Yeah.
And then, by Wednesday, you get a little breath of fresh air and like, all right, it's midweek. I can go out and, have 2 for 1, go out ladies' night, get smashed. So I
Yeah.
don't have to do, or Thursday, I sweep the hangover on Friday and hopefully I can get off early. Saturday, Sunday, I'm alive. Then the Sunday night blues come, right? Like,
It's a
Sunday
good
night,
description. It's a good
I've been
description.
there. And
Mm.
all of this whole thing is caused by mainly bad leadership because people in leadership positions haven't been trained on how to deal with people and manage them and lead them and inspire them.
Mm.
They are not trained and it causes toxic work environments. And ultimately, companies suffer because if you don't have a positive environment where people enjoy working, they're not going to give you their best. They're going to give you the bare minimum. And then
Yeah.
they're going to be secretly looking for another opportunity. And if overtime or anything is on the table, they're going to do it with a huge sense of resentment. Because now I
Hmm.
got to spend more time in my day in this place I don't want to be.
Yeah.
So leadership can change that whole dynamic around if people learned how to actually lead, inspire, and be a leader and create an environment, which is something that's hugely needed in today's corporate and business world.
Yeah. 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 I can follow you in that because it's. I was reflecting while you were talking about it. I think I'm at my 16th different position. I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I've been an employee for maybe 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about that. And then the last 5 years, I've started my own business, and I'm my own leader. But I do freelance jobs. So in any case, I got a boss. It's a lady
Yeah.
boss right now, and I had a male boss for a year. And there's already a different dynamic between those two. The
Mm-hmm.
one is very very directive, but it makes it also very clear what she's expecting from me. Um, while the other ones was not so much involved. He just, gave me the idea of, see that everything's running while I'm doing other stuff. If that's okay, I will come back to you if there's any issues and blah blah blah. Well,
Yeah.
the lady is more ingrained and more talkative to me, and giving me stuff to do, and new ideas, which
Yeah.
feeds me as well. And she knows my strengths at this point. I've been there 2 years. It's pretty
Right.
exceptional to be a freelance job for 2 years in I'm working in a nuclear power plant right now as a
Okay.
competence and training manager. So it's a lot more administrative, but you tend to try to find ways, and especially my role, I try to find ways. What you're talking about, finding ways of doing those people skills
Hmm.
and getting. It's not only about the simple things about time management and communication, and no, it's more like, how do you show yourself as being, I always compare it to a horse's carriage. A
Hmm.
leader should be in front of the horses, guiding the horses and giving example of, that's the way we're going, all the noses in the right direction, and not sitting on the carriage and directing the horses out they need to drive, because the horses then, they just look around, and they spend more time looking around than actually doing what they need to do. And
Yeah.
it's one of the examples that I try to bring within the team that's there as well. So I have two people that manage the team. One is an expert in planning and all that stuff, and the other person is really people skills and getting stuff done. Um, so I have a layer in between the actual people on the floor and myself. But the fun
Okay.
thing is, I show them how you actually sometimes need to have your people, run into a wall, learn from their mistakes, and then catch them. And as a leader, um, you learn as well that after they run into the wall and they made a mistake, you're the one that's going to say, if higher management noticed that mistake, yeah, sorry, it's somebody in my team. It's You're not going to name the person. You're just going to cover up for them in a certain way, as saying they needed to run into the wall to learn this. So let's accept the error that happened, and let's learn from it and move on. And you got an
Hmm.
employee who's one maybe a little bit hurt in the beginning, but then they see that they learn something, and they feel a lot more fulfilled. Their
Hmm.
job has meaning at that point. You're not doing just numbers and planning stuff. No, you're learning stuff, and you're learning to go beyond what you're used to. And I remember saying this a couple of times, because I see a lot of people who have that glass window, the glass ceiling, sorry, that you don't see it. You don't see where your limits are. And then when you
Hmm.
have a leader that takes you to those limits and actually says, let me put you over the edge, I'll cover you on the other side, don't worry about it, I'll be there, but you need to do this, and you need to make that mistake. And I think that's something that's kind of missing as well in a lot of
Hmm.
environments, to be able to do that. It's happening, but what happens is the people get, they get ticked on the fingers, as they say.
Yeah.
It's just, no, why did you do that? Bad person. I'm like,
Hmm.
no, great, you made a mistake. What did you learn? And it's a
Hmm.
completely different dynamic in when that
Yeah.
happens. And I think it's the same thing when you're at high achieving leadership, CEO level, founder level. They do the same mistakes, and they get ticked on the fingers the same way. But who's there to cover for them, or who's there to
Hmm.
grab them on the other side of that glass ceiling? Um, so what's your experience with those stories, with people in high level positions? How do you in your past experiences, have you met people that you really guided in that story as well, on yourself, by your experiences or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I would say that that's a lot to unpack. So let's
Yeah.
go to one key point you made, right?
Yeah.
One key point you said is you're there to catch them,
Hmm.
meaning that people flourish in an environment where they know that someone has their best interest at heart.
True. Yeah.
And if you are making that apparently clear to them, they're going to feel safe enough to be open and honest with you. But the ticked on the fingers, like, hey, you're a bad kid, you shouldn't have done that, or you're going to get a spanking kind of style that comes overtly, it makes people feel unsafe. So they feel like they need to try to deceive and cover up so they don't lose face, right? Because they don't feel
Yeah.
safe making a mistake.
Yeah.
Because there's humiliation tactics, there's shaming tactics,
Mm.
there's these very primate level human caveman kind of unsophisticated tactics people use to manage people because they don't know, they haven't really been trained on this.
Yeah.
So the idea really is, one thing I can pull from the military was a senior gunnery sergeant Howell. He was a Marine. And one thing I observed about him when I was about 19 years old, we were deployed going over to do support ops for the Afghanistan conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And all of his men would come in. He was in charge of about 46 guys, and they would all come in, and he would eat last.
Okay.
And he would make sure that they saw that. And as they were eating, he would go around and he would talk to each one of his men. How you doing today, son? Are you holding up okay? And he would get to know them a little bit, and he would eat last. And everybody saw that. And that's why they respected him.
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew that most leaders, like for example, like the Navy officers, they would go and they would eat first in their own fancy area. And then all the enlisted, we have this, this chow line where you get this scoop full of stuff and, you're on your own. If you lose out, you're too slow. You got to wait till next time. Yeah. Rather than that, he would eat last, and he would always be with his men. So that's one thing that cued me in, is like, if you want people to feel like that you care about them, you've got to be there on a ground level, and you got to lead by example. And there's something in the military called the DAD model, which might be called something different now, but the DAD model is for three things, an acronym: demonstrate, assist, and then you're going to basically dictate or direct.
Uh-huh.
So first, demonstrate means I'm going to do what I want you to do.
Uh-huh.
I want you to be on time. The work starts at 6 a.m. I'll be there at 5:30.
Yeah.
Every day. I want you to put in extra work. So if you're doing overtime at, 5 p.m. is your cutoff and you're there till 7, I'm there till 8. Because I'm demonstrating that I want you to have a work ethic. Yeah. I want you to be dedicated. I want you to be, so I got to demonstrate first. I can't tell you to work till 7 p.m. and I'm out the door at 5 at home watching TV. You're not going to respect me. Zero.
Indeed. Yeah.
And you're going to talk about it. So the second thing is, as I'm demonstrating these kind of things, like if I want everyone to be shown mutual respect, I want to create an environment everybody respects one another. I respect everybody.
Uh-huh.
And so one way to do this is you formalize people. How you doing today, sir? Even though I'm the boss, I'm calling you sir.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to you in a formal way to show you respect. And it seems counterintuitive, but what happens is people start to level up their performance because someone in a leadership position is holding them to a higher regard.
Yeah. I can see what you do.
So instead of talking to you like, hey, do this right now, like I'm talking to you like an underling, I talk to you like someone that's equal of respect. And it makes you feel almost obligated to up your performance because I'm holding you to a higher standard. The third thing is like consideration, right? Like I want people to be considerate of each other. So I'll be considerate and I'll show consideration as a leader.
Yeah.
Hey, I know you guys are working real hard today. It's a Friday. We had to do a little bit of overtime. I bought you guys pizza and some soda here. Or, we've been working hard this month. We met our targets. We're taking a trip to the beach. On me. It's on the company. I'm showing you that I care. So as I'm demonstrating, the next thing I'll go towards is assist. You've seen me demonstrating all these things. Now I'm going to ask you for help.
Uh-huh.
So I'll start a task, even though I might not know how to do it. I'll start it, then I'll ask you to help me do it.
Yeah, indeed.
Hey, I really need to reprogram this nuclear reactor. You think you can help me out with this? Yeah, sure.
I hope so. At least one of the two is doing something that they know. But indeed.
Maybe it's a bit of an extreme example, but the idea is you start demonstrating qualities and then you get people to assist you in doing what you're already doing. Hey guys, we really need to finish this tonight. I really need some help with this. Let's get this done. So instead of me telling you, hey, you work overtime, I'm going home, it's I need you to help me with this. And I'm here until I'm the last one out the door. When people have seen what you demonstrate, they'll be likely to assist you because they respect you. Because you're there with them. You're not just skating out the door at 5 o'clock. You're there until 8 o'clock too. So they're invested in you. Okay, Nico needs my help. He's a good son of guy. I want to make sure this project's done. Let's do it, Nico. We're doing it together.
Yeah.
After you've asked for assistance, then you're in a position to dictate. All right, guys, now that you see me doing what you want me to do, now that you're willing to assist me, now I can sit on the carriage of the horse, like you said.
Yeah, indeed.
I've earned my right now.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
earned the right. I've dragged the horses through the mud up a mountain. Now I can sit down.
yeah, indeed.
But a lot of the problem is people want to skip to the third one and not go through the hard part of the first two.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've
So
noticed that in the past as well.
this is one thing I observed from Gunnery Sergeant Hal, and this is something I've taken with me personally in my time in the corporate world and even now, is that whenever you're trying to lead people, demonstrate what you want them to do and how you want them to act and what ethics and values you want them to have. Second, ask them for assistance. And third, once you've done the first two right, the third part is easy. They'll be willing to bend over backwards and help you and do whatever you got to do because you've earned their respect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of did a couple of those things intuitively in the past. Um, I've had the advantage of, so I'm not highly educated or anything.
Mm.
I'm an electromechanic. Don't ask me to come and install electricity in your house because it'll probably blow up anyway. But anyway, uh, that knowledge has gone way into the back of the gray cells. But I used to do cabling, so I was one of
Okay.
I think one of the third or fourth job, and I did network cabling, computer networks, and there was a team of guys, and we had a hard deadline. It was gonna, 2 weeks, everything had to be cabled because the guys who were going to connect it were going to come in, blah blah blah, and there's like 5 or 6 of them, and I think I was like 22, 23 years old, green at the back of the ears and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but there was nobody actually taking the lead on getting this job done. And at some point I'm like, okay, so nobody's doing, let me do whatever is necessary to get the people running and doing stuff. And like you said, I got up got really early on site, prepared all the cables, what needed to be done, measured everything, found out the routes, because I always enjoyed doing that, finding my way through a whole building to get from one side to another.
That's a hard job, man.
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
a hard job.
It's
not easy.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's true, and you find a lot of holes that you can't go through, but
running cables
so
is
you
a hard
make them,
thing.
of course.
Yeah.
Never use dynamite, by the way, but good big drill helps as well.
Cordless drills are a gift.
So then these guys came in and they noticed that I was coming in early and everything was ready for them, and I'm like, hey, oh, hold on, Nico, you've been doing these things every morning. Why have you been doing these? It's our job. I'm like, no, it's our job. We're doing this together. We got a deadline. So like to day 4, I think, of the 2 weeks, the guys were there early as well. Like you said, they were acting the same way. I didn't even ask them to do it. And my manager, I think it was called Eric. He came in at some point because he was kind of worried that the job was not going to be done. And he came in, and I think I only joined the company like 6 months before or something like that. And he came in and he was like, so guys, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. And the guys were looking at him and said, oh, finally, you just showed up. Nice. He's been doing all the work. He's been prepping everything, blah, blah, blah. So we know the routes. And so we're explaining what I already did. And I was just continuing. I didn't care anybody was there. I just wanted to do the job and get finished. And Eric comes at me and he's later on his list. So how did you get these guys motivated? Because this is a team that we've been trying to get stuff done for so long, and they're just doing it right now. I'm like, I have no idea. I just got up here and explained a little bit what I did. And he's like, wow, that's a completely different approach than what we were, like you say, directing them to do the job. It had to be done within 2 weeks. And apparently, and that was the freaky part, the deadline was a self-invented deadline by management to get these guys to do the job. And I'm like, hold on, you're actually lying to your people to get stuff done? And he's like, yeah, don't tell them because it's going to break trust and this and that. I think, honestly, at that point, I was like, wow, this is not okay. So I didn't say anything. And after that to the guys, but at the end, so we finished the job 2 days early. And then what I did was I knew that we were going to finish that day. And I got these crates of beer. Normally, in I think it was like 2002, something like that, there were still a lot of companies who didn't have these alcohol policies and stuff like that. So I was able
back
to
in the
do
good
it.
old days. Yeah.
Yeah. So I came in with these 2 crates of beer, put them on the table, and said, "Guys, sit down." And he's like, "No, no, we have to do this." And no, 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 no. I said, "Let's sit down. We're having a beer together. This is so important. I find that we've done a great job. Let's have a beer together." He's like, "Hold on, you're not the manager here. Why are you doing this?" Because I paid it out of my own pocket. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Guys, I don't care who's the manager, whatever. We had a job to do. We're way ahead. Let's take a moment and chat with each other." And these guys were so astonished that after the job, every single time there was a job to be done, they asked for me, and they
Yeah.
wanted me
I
to be
trust you.
their leader to do the job. And so
You're in the
the only
right to sit on
problem,
the horse.
yeah, I was able to sit, absolutely. The only problem I got jealousy from the
Mhm.
managers that didn't understand what I was doing. So they were kind
Yeah.
of pissed off because I got my people to do a lot more stuff. I was leading people without having a manager title.
Yeah.
So it was strange that um, at some points, you can see envy in people's eyes when you come into the office.
Mm.
It's like really clear.
Yeah.
But one of the directors, he was like, "I don't care if he has a title or he doesn't, or whatever he did, or this or that. The job is being done. Our customers are happy. Make him do more jobs." And I was like, "Okay, I got promoted. I got a car. I got this. I got that, just by doing what I find natural."
Yeah.
And the other guys were just happy, and they saw me getting these accolades and all these stuff, and they didn't complain. If somebody else would have gotten that, they would have been pissed off, really.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is normal. I find this normal, pick up the stuff, get people to do stuff. And
Yeah.
uh, I've been doing that my whole career, and it always got me beautiful things. But one of the things that I did notice is, because for me it was so normal,
Mm.
at the end of getting the accolade, getting the promotions and all of that, I still felt kind of empty, because
Mm.
I didn't enjoy the fact that I was building it. I noticed after a couple of years that I was doing these things, but I wasn't enjoying it, and I kind of got at the end of the story, I was in a dark place sometimes.
Mm.
Not heavily in the beginning, but after a couple of years, I was wondering what else is there? Is there something else that I can do that makes me fulfilled? And that's where,
Mm.
like you're saying, I was kind of starting to escape in smoking,
Mhm.
drinking, and stuff like that. I've never been an alcoholic in the extremes, but apparently that's something within my family. We do not get addicted to substances, so we can stop right away. But it's amazing that the whole period that happened, and like you said, the the story, the DAD acronym,
Mm.
is very applicable. What I've, on the other hand, noticed is that there's a lot of leaders, when you were saying earlier about trauma and all of that stuff. There's a
Yeah.
lot of leaders that do indeed escape into other things. And I think you mentioned it earlier about the philanthropy story as well, that
Mhm.
they kind of escape in those things. And it's something that I noticed as well, that they don't get the fulfillment that they want, so they
Mm.
escape and keep on escaping. Can you tell us about that? Because I think that's very interesting as well. Your point of view on
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah.
The thing is, if you understand the dynamics of trauma and what happens in the mind, our normal, this is something I cover in my book, right? I call it the pacification effects. In the States,
Okay.
we call it a binky, the little, the pacifier the baby sucks on
Oh
when its teeth are
yes,
coming in.
indeed.
From a young age, it conditions us to seek a simulation of comfort. Because when
Hmm.
you're a little baby and your teeth are pushing through your gums and it hurts, they stick a fake rubber nipple in your mouth that feels like a real nipple, like you're sucking on a boob. And the
Yeah.
plastic has this kind of like sweet little flavor to it. So your mind thinks you're sucking on a boob
Yep.
and you're
Yep.
drinking milk. And so you're
Hmm.
happy and you be quiet because it takes your mind off of the pain.
Hmm.
Now think about that idea on a baseline level and you graduate that up to candies next, right?
Yep.
I
That's
feel bad about something. I'm depressed. I'm a little kid. In our day, probably of the same age, I get a lollipop.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
or something sweet. And then I'm happy. I get ice cream. And then that graduates up to, okay, now I'm an adult. Now I can drink some beer and alcohol or other stuff, right?
Yeah.
It comes in this idea of we need to put something on top of our pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep psychological conditioning from a very, very young age when our minds are like wet concrete. This giant
Mm-hmm.
handprint of this habit is put in us. With if you feel like bad about something because it hurts, find something to comfort you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you graduate this up to the subject of our conversation, what a lot of people do is if you're an entrepreneur or you're in business and you're highly successful and you're hyper driven, that emotional energy has to come from something deeper than just, I want to get up and make a buck.
Mm-hmm.
There's something deeper driving you. And you study the habits of most successful people. A lot of them had very traumatic, dark pasts.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of family situation that wasn't going right, divorces from ex-wives. Their business becomes the outlet for the negative feelings. And they excel in that area because all of this negative emotional baggage, they put a lighter on it and the rocket fuels them towards, I can stay up, 12,
Yeah.
15 hours into the middle of the night and I can work and I can invent this thing and I can close all these deals and I can buy my Ferrari and my mansion on a hill and all this stuff. It's fueled by an escape from pain.
Yeah.
And what happens is it's like the idea of stepping on hot coals or let's say walking on hot sand, right?
Yeah.
You're at the beach, the ocean's far away, you step on the sand, you're like, all right, I got to run now because it's too hot to stay still.
Yes.
So you run as fast as you can and then you
Mm-hmm.
get in the water and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you stop, the burning sensation starts to set in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you think about these hyper successful, hyper driven people, they can never stop because as soon as they are still within themselves, all of this trauma says, hey, you've been ignoring me. Oh, no, I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to you. I need another Ferrari. I need another 7-figure business. I need another mansion. I need another, girlfriend. I need another this. I need another that. They run in different directions because most people by tendency that are hyper successful and hyper driven and beyond the norm have a form of trauma that they're using as rocket fuel to propel them away from whatever it is. The problem is you can never be still.
Yeah.
Because we're under this delusion that if I accomplish this thing, all of these past things are just going to magically evaporate and disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they don't.
That's a big illusion. True.
They don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you, like in my own experience, right? I lost my father to suicide in 2013. So I put all my energy into my job. I had a job as a marketing and sales consultant for a Japanese company. I was going to Japan, going to the Silicon Valley, traveling around the Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand. I was really full on my job. And then I was running a startup company. So I had a startup e-commerce company that I was running on the side. And I was doing 14, 15-hour days because I didn't want to be still. If I'm still, those bad, dark things start creeping in. So I got to keep occupied, something. To the point I was sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a night. And I was always 24/7, every day, work.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a decent level of success from it, but the problem is I hit a wall. Like those, that sand burns holes in your feet eventually. And you got to stop running, right?
Yes. Yeah, true.
So yeah. So I would say to answer your question, some of it's a bit of a big long answer, but
No, it's a good one.
if you're motivated by trauma or motivated by a need to prove something, which most people are, on a deeper level, that trauma is unconsciously being burned as rocket fuel to propel you towards success. In the process of that, it's still burning people around you too, because it's based on trauma. So it's unconsciously going to manifest. Because there's no such thing as like a work-life separation because you're the same person.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's interconnected, 100%.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if my dog died on Tuesday morning, and then I go to work on Tuesday, I can't say, oh, I'm not depressed about it because I'm at work.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there, right?
Yeah, you got to carry it with you. Absolutely. Mm.
Like, sure, you can put it at bay. I mean, you can put, a tarp over it and some duct tape, but the hole's still there, right?
Yes, it's still gonna smell.
Yeah,
Indeed. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you can put some air freshener on it, but that lump of it's still in the living room, like it's still there.
Indeed.
So yeah, so I think that it's really important for leaders to start to really look at themselves on an internal level. What is motivating you and driving you, and what are the emotions that you don't want to face, and how are they manifesting? And your life on an unconscious level.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you expecting of other people that you're doing that they're not doing because they're not you?
Mm.
You might be cool with working till 9 p.m., but the guy that's not running away from his past and his trauma wants to go home and see his family at 5.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's got completely other priority. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Things like
So
that, man. So it's consciousness of the unconscious. And I think this is something all people in leadership positions need to really start developing an awareness of.
mhm.
What are my feelings doing and how are they causing me to act towards other people? And what is this doing to affect my environment?
Yeah.
If I'm mad at my wife because I'm getting a divorce and someone goes in the office and makes a mistake and I scream at them on the top of my lungs, what is that selling everybody else? That's telling
Mhm.
everybody else, don't get caught making a mistake. So be more sneaky because this
Yeah.
guy's a dickhead and I don't want to get yelled at him
Yeah. Yeah.
because he has no emotional control. He's unstable and I don't respect him. So let's just hide things from him.
Mhm.
So those kind of, I don't know, it's a bit of a long answer, but does that answer your question or
Yeah, it
the last
does. It
one?
does. Yeah, absolutely. So the only question that I have built on that is, so it has to do with working on yourself.
Mm,
And what I'd also know is so in the personal development sector, I'm gonna call it that,
yeah.
there's also a lot of um, workshops and programs and stuff like that are being done, that mostly tell people what they need to do.
Mm,
So there's a lot of mindfulness and meditation, and these are amazing tools, and they're so
yeah.
simple they make them too complex sometimes in my opinion. But um, so they're telling you what they need to do, but then actually doing them in the way that
Mm.
it helps you with what you're exactly what you're explaining right there.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you or nobody guides you in that. It's like, no, I'll tell you what you need to do. I tell you and you have to do it. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Yeah, yeah, you can give a person a manual on a device, but
Mm,
they still have to put the on button on. And who's going to
mm,
guide them towards that on button and push them and say, okay, now you're going to actually push that button? That's one of the things that I've focused on with my
yeah.
customers as well. Is they get ample opportunity to call me or send me text messages, what's going on within them and so on. Um, but one of the things that I've learned is the accountability to ask them, did you actually do what you were going to say that you were going to do? And
Mm.
a lot of the time there's first there's excuses. The first time,
Okay.
every time there's life came up and something
Oh,
this
I
and that,
this and that, and yeah, yeah.
found out this, blah blah. And then it's like, okay, so basically hard and clear truth and radical truth is needed at that point. You need to tell the person in front of you, you're messing with your own life. Stop doing this. Your excuses are not relevant. You need to do the stuff. So in Dutch,
Mm.
I have an acronym called D to the third power.
Okay.
Do that done is it called? So it's basically the same thing that Nike says. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it now. And that's basically what it says. And a lot of people are using that acronym at this point here because they're like, yeah, if you use that and you're in excuse mode, um, thinking about just don't think about it, just do it. That's where it basically comes down to. Uh, and that's one of the things that I've noticed on a leadership level is that there's nobody. Yeah, I mean really high tier leadership, CEO level, and
Mm.
and so on. There's nobody who's going to tell a CEO what he needs to do, and why
Mm.
not? Really, why
Yeah.
not? They are people. My grandmothers, and this is a disgusting expression, by the way, but my grandmother always says, even the king needs to take a piss and a shit. And I'm like, it's true. They're human
Yeah.
beings. They also need
Yeah.
these motivations and so on. And I find that sometimes you need to push people a little bit over the edge in their trauma.
Mm.
Let me be clear, that is not something that you do easily or just simply, you don't want to push
Yeah.
people over the edge. But I mean, by guiding them and being there for them and listening. I always say, Silence is the most powerful thing that a person can do, is be
Mm,
silent. That's one of the things why I do this in my introduction as well. When I say, feel the beat within, and then I
mm,
stop and I give a little moment of silence. It is a moment where I've noticed this in other podcasts while I'm listening, and there's this awkward silence, as they say. I don't find it awkward. I find it revealing. It's
mm,
something where things come up. It's like you just talked for a whole time, and then at some point, bam, this silence, bam.
mm.
It's the point where your mind thinks, "Oh, I got time to think now. I'm not listening anymore. I need." These kind of the techniques that I kind of use in what I try to put into the
Mm.
world, and I think that's something that it's needed a little bit more. What you're telling me, your story, how you've done all these segments, and how you've written the book. Honestly, I think it's going to be amazing when you put it out there, especially what you're saying with what's in there, and the understanding of the escape continuously to find other means to fill in. Not looking at yourself. The mirror, escaping the mirror the whole time. Basically, is I think it's going to be an amazing thing. Yeah.
You mentioned one really critical point, though, right? We can kind of go back to that, but let's explore this idea a little bit. You can tell someone what to do and they know it, but why don't they execute? It
Mm-hmm.
seems like it's common sense, right?
Uh-huh.
It seems like it should be a given,
Uh-huh.
but a lot of people have a very hard time actually executing. And then we just kind of hold them to this, like, what's wrong with you, shame kind of standard when we look at them because it makes sense to us. But we don't really explore why executing and knowing are two very different things, and we don't adequately prepare for each.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Look at weight loss, right?
Yep.
I used to be very out of shape at one point in my life because I was hitting the beers heavily, hitting food. I was really trying to enjoy not looking at myself, and I was doing a good job at it. And
Yeah.
I wanted to, of course, like, okay, I want to go out and take my shirt off and look ripped and feel better in my body. But what's preventing me from actually not picking up this hamburger, this Coca-Cola, or this eating this pizza, or this bucket of wings, or drinking 10, 15 beers a night?
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't look at the emotions attached to action.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea, it's like the jump test, right?
Uh-huh.
Imagine you're back in college and your friends are, we're jumping off of a 50-foot bridge, a 25 meters bridge into the water. It's a simple task.
Uh-huh.
Walk off the cliff and jump. Is it easy? No.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense rationally. Dude, just walk over there and jump. Why don't you jump?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy on an understanding conceptual level, but to actually muster up the courage, look over the edge and see that you're going to drop 50 feet or 25 meters around that into some water and you don't know what's down there, you're going to have second thoughts and you're probably going to think, I don't know. Maybe instead of jumping, I might just sit back here and do what I'm comfortable with and not jump. Why not do that? So,
and the amount of energy that first step, just before actually doing it, the amount of energy that goes into that doubt and uncertainty and everything that goes around emotionally on the time before you actually execute something.
Yeah.
It's a total waste of energy. Yeah.
And so to kind of play on this idea a little bit, because you mentioned something critical, and I think your audience can benefit from this. If you are as a leader and you're expecting someone to do something because they understand it on a conceptual level, you have to take into account the emotional attachment that's involved in that, because that's 50% of the process.
Mm-hmm.
We make decisions based on emotion and then we justify and implement through logic.
Yeah.
The decision for me to eat food is based on the feeling of being hungry. If I don't have the feeling of being hungry, I don't need to go through the hassle of, loading up my bow and arrow or climbing up a tree or going to the grocery store or whatever humans have done to satisfy the feeling of hunger. Like it's not there, right? There's no motivation. So one thing I would suggest people look at is, what is the emotion behind the resistance to change? That is what's stopping people from actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you dig into that deep enough, most of the time it's fear.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear is, I don't know this. I'm not comfortable doing this. I might mess up. I might look, I might damage my reputation. I'll lose face. I might make a mistake. I don't know how this feel. I won't feel good. I won't feel confident in myself. I don't know. I don't want to step into that. I don't want to step off that ledge yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You'll do it if you have 10 of your friends, yeah, come on, let's
Oh,
go.
yeah.
And
Of
they're
course.
cheering you
Of
on.
course. Yeah. Highly
But if you're
motivated
there
right
by
there.
you're there by yourself. I mean, how many people? It takes a rare individual. Like, I'm gonna show up by myself at this cliff jump on Saturday and do it all by myself. You got to
Exceptional.
be a special
Absolutely.
exceptional, right? Most of us aren't that guy. Let's just be
Mm-hmm.
honest. So I would say that as a leader, look at the fear and the emotional baggage associated with the person not making changes and what's inhibiting their decision to act.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually the apprehension towards discomfort, because change is uncomfortable, or the
Yeah.
fear of damage to the reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So, like example, your client, you're dealing with a CEO and you're trying to hold him accountable to do something. A CEO is a big deal. Like, you have a big
Yeah.
company, you're the CEO, you're the guy, right? You're the guy, you're the face. Like, everyone looks at you, so you can't look stupid, man. You can't look bad.
Mm-hmm.
So trying something new that I don't know how to do, it might make me look bad. I'm afraid of that. So maybe I won't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
Absolutely.
99% of the time, that's usually the cause. I mean, of course, there's other exceptions, but on a general level, this is why people don't actually take action on the things they know that seem simple intellectually, but don't,
Mm-hmm.
again, muster up that courage to jump off that ledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I always ask them the question, who would you be without those feelings? Or who would you
Mm.
be if you've done it? And then, kind of change their perspective of the being in front of the decision of the action or whatever that point, the critical point where they actually go over
Mm.
and execute. I asked that question first, and then you see that when it comes down to really deciding and there's no other way, they'll take the action and they'll go through the
Mm.
change and everything like that. And one of the triggers I've noticed is the reward at the end. So what
Mm.
kind of reward? And for some people it might be money. It's which is the most simple reward that exists, by the way. If
Yeah.
somebody tells you that they're going for the money, it's an easy way to decide because it's you're going for the money. And for us, a lot of people, money is a good reward.
Yeah.
Um, and there are others who go for instance, if you're in front of a car and you see a fire going towards the car and your kid is in the car, you will not be thinking about how am I going to approach this or how this or that.
No.
You're going to go run for that car. You're going to smash in the window and take out your kid. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with some other actions that you just have to skip the thought and the emotion and go into a pure, no-brainer action story. So
Yeah.
it's dependent on any situation. I absolutely agree as well. That's probably what a lot of people might say, but you are absolutely spot on by thinking about what's the emotion that's behind stopping
Mm.
you taking decisions or actions in everything that you do. So, Rob, I've enjoyed our conversation. I see that we're at an hour of conversation, and I've this has been an amazing hour, to be honest.
Awesome.
Is there anything that you want to add on our conversation before we, close off a little bit?
Yeah, I guess there's one thing we can kind of address too. And I think this is a very important thing for leaders. And the idea of being a leader and attaching your ego to a position too much
Hmm.
is actually going to inhibit your ability to perform.
Okay. Okay.
And the reason I say this, right, this is again based from military experience. People that just really get married to their rank and only become that rank, they forget the person that they are.
Uh huh.
Because what happens on two levels, right? Human beings in a hierarchical system will generally comply out of fear.
Uh huh.
Like, if I'm working with you and Nico is senior to me, I'm not going to tell you all the things I think about you if I don't like you, because I know if I do that, I'm going to lose my job, and I got,
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities attached to that. So it's not what I want.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a level of compliance out of fear because it's a hierarchical system, and that's what keeps things in order. It's the glue that keeps the pyramid together.
Yeah.
Now, what happens a lot of times, especially in organizations, is people get married to their job title.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the regional manager. I'm the COO. I'm the chairman of the board. I'm the HR manager. I'm this. I'm that.
Mm-hmm.
What you have to understand is people don't automatically respect you just because you have that job title.
Mm-hmm.
They comply out of fear because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Uh-huh.
What you got to do as an individual, as a human being, is again, you have to earn the right to sit on those horses.
Yeah.
Because once you've earned the right, they're going to be happy for you. They're not going to resent you. They're going to say, you deserve that promotion. You deserve that new salary upgrade. You deserve that new car. And I'm glad you got it because you deserve it. So the thing is, if you step outside of your ego and say, all right, this job title just buys me compliance out of fear. As a baseline, it's a baseline system of people aren't going to tell you what they actually think about you because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go beyond that to earn actual respect, it comes from the person you are behind the job title, which is a character trait, which is something that you even talked about in your experience, where you're showing up early, you're taking people's interest at heart, making their job easier. You're coming out of your own pocket to reward them. You're naturally adopting the traits of a leader through your character traits that are irrespective of your job title. This is why you could be a 22-year-old guy, right? And have guys on your team that are, maybe 30, 40, 50 years old, looking at you like you're the chief of the tribe.
Uh-huh.
Where's Nico? Come on, we need him here. What do we do, boss?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that story in itself had proved the point of it doesn't matter what your job title is in terms of inspiring and motivating and being an actual leader.
Mm-hmm.
The job title is just really icing on the cake. It's not the batter that really makes the substance. So
yeah,
I think that, one, I guess, piece of advice I would give to people listening is if you're too attached to your job title, realize that it doesn't buy you respect. It just buys you compliance. The person you are and the character you have beyond that and how you show people that you deserve to sit on the horse because you're the one that's willing to drag those horses through the mud, up a mountain, through the swamp, fight off the monsters, whatever you got to do. And you finally get to a place where you can sit down, they're going to be happy for you, but you got to earn it. And there's no shortcutting that. And no job title automatically gives you that, no matter how high you go.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I guess I just add in at the end.
Yeah, well, it's true. I absolutely agree. And I think it's one of the biggest keys to be that leader where the people flock to. They're not just there because of the job. No, they're because of one of the things that I've noticed in the past. I did career coaching for a while, and 90% of the people were leaving the company because their bosses sucked. Basically, they were.
It's a problem.
Micromanaging, they were annoying, shouting, whatever, and that was the reason why they were leaving. The other 10% was usually colleagues, people around them. So thank you very much for that last add-on. That's key. People listen to that. That's really, really, really important. So Rob, thank you very much for your time. And one more question I want to ask you is where can people find you? And so what's your deadline? I'm going to push you a little bit here. What's your deadline on launching your book? Because now I want to see that.
Yeah, I need it. When I was a kid, my dad used to tell me, he said, a barber always needs his haircut from another barber.
That's a beautiful one. I'm going to remember that one.
Yes. A barber is good at looking at everybody else's head, but if he tries to cut his own hair in the mirror, he's not going to do a good job, right? So,
that's true.
I mean, I need it too. Everybody needs. We need someone else to look at our blind spots and say, "Hey, you missed a spot here. Let me fix you up and help you out." So, I would say I want to get it launched by July.
Okay.
Publisher or no publisher. Right now, I'm tied up in negotiating with a publisher. If that doesn't work out, then I'll just go independent on Amazon self-publishing. Just get it out there.
Absolutely.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. I mean, I casually just do Instagram for fun and just kind of put out, tidbits of wisdom and advice and just whatever I feel like sharing with people, I share on Instagram just for my friends and family and whoever. It's not really a serious thing. But in terms of finding me, I'm active here on LinkedIn. My name's Rob Greene. You'll see this handsome face here. And if you want to, if you're open to connecting with me, if you want to discuss communication strategies, sales training, leadership tactics, things like that. I mean, I'm definitely open to help people, and I'm definitely open to connect with people that can benefit from what I have to offer.
Super, super. Great. So in any case, I'm going to put your name and links in the description of the podcast. In any case, it's a great way to, directly go and click down there. After everybody, of course, follows me and give me a 5-star review. Kind of a pattern that they need to follow. But anyway, especially after a conversation like this is more than a 5-star review. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Stuff that you brought on board are very, very, very valuable. Thank you very much, Robert, for joining us.
Awesome.
So we'll probably hear everybody next time. Enjoy your day, and thank you very much for listening to this podcast episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Everlasting Podcast. Let me leave you with a few questions to answer in the comments. How do you see the different topics we discussed during this interview? What are your thoughts? What stood out for you? Let us know in the comments or just send us your feedback. We launch new episodes weekly. Don't miss any by ensuring you are subscribed to the show. Click the follow button now. We depend on the organic growth of the podcast to inspire more and more people. So by giving us a 5-star review and sharing this episode with at least one of your friends who might be interested in the subject, you will significantly help more people become inspired. But more than anything, I am grateful to you for taking the time to listen to the show. If you are also a successful CEO, founder, or entrepreneur who has inspiring words to say, feel free to contact us for an interview at contact@nicovandevenne.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you again soon with more inspirational conversations on achieving everlasting fulfillment.